Hey everybody, welcome to the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast, dedicated to raising awareness, sharing IBD stories, and offering support for those with Crohn's and colitis. Together, we can share knowledge, experiences, and help show the world the many faces of IBD. Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today for another episode of the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Gish, Crohn's warrior since 2006 and lifelong fitness fanatic. My guest today is Samantha Rynearson, a cake artist, wife, mother, and Crohn's warrior since 2012. She's here to share her journey with Crohn's and how she's learned to balance family, pursuing her passions, and life with IBD. Thank you so much for joining me today, Samantha, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. This will be a good conversation.
Yes.
So we know that every Crohn's and colitis story is different. Why don't you start by telling me your Crohn's story, when you had your first flare, and how your diagnosis came about?
Yeah. Okay. So, like you had said in the intro, my story kind of started in 2012. It was kind of at the end of the year in 2011. I had just turned 20 in December. I was living with my best friend, Katie, at the time. And she was kind of actually the one who alerted me and kind of noticed like that I wasn't really eating and I was like dramatically losing weight. But when I was eating, my stomach would hurt. So I guess just my mind and my body was like adjusting to like running on nothing. And then after the new year in 2012, she came home and I was just laying in my bed in the fetal position, just crying and moaning. And I felt like I could like barely breathe. And she kept asking me if I needed anything. And I just kept telling her I didn't.
Right.
But obviously she wasn't believing me. And after probably like another hour, and I wasn't letting her sleep because she could hear me, she finally came in with her car keys in her hand and she said, okay, you're either getting in my car and we're going to the ER or I'm calling you an ambulance. Like you do not have a choice.
That is a good friend.
Yes, she is the best. So I obviously chose the car route because ambulance rides are expensive.
Exactly.
And I wish I could say that emergency room trip gave me any sort of clarity, but if anything, I think it confused me more. They sent me on my way with antibiotics and told me that I had a UTI, which anybody that's a female knows that they don't normally give you antibiotics for UTI.
Exactly.
So I had made a follow-up appointment with my doctor and she took a bunch of lab work. So initially, my diagnosis was severe anemia, like to the point where all my organs had started to like shut down.
Wow.
So they tried to get me to take a bunch of iron pills, but I could not keep those down for like the life of me. And then I got a pneumonia diagnosis. So that took 4 rounds of antibiotics to get rid of.
Wow. How long was all this taking from the time you went into the emergency room to all these misdiagnoses?
So this was probably a good 3 to 4 month period. And so finally, my doctor was like, we're just going to do a colonoscopy because you can't keep food down. I couldn't keep the iron pills down. And I wish that I could say that was when I started to get help. But literally they told me that I had severe inflammation in my intestines. And then I was referred to a hematologist for the anemia. That's all they did. And I'm from like I'm from a very rural town. So not a whole lot to go on. They don't normally see, severe inflammation in a 20-year-old. So they had no clue.
Wow.
And I actually saw that hematologist for a little bit under a year. So my health kept going up and down. And the whole time, I had actually started college that January. So I was college full time. I was working 35 hours a week. And And then finally, the hematologist that I was seeing left, and they gave me a new one. And that first visit with him was like my first and my only. And he literally looked over all of my records and he was like, I really don't understand why you're with hematology. So he referred me to a gastroenterologist. And
Wow.
being in a rural area, I had to travel an hour. So
nothing was easy.
No, all while going to classes. And anybody who's been through culinary school or baking, like baking a pastry, like our labs are 4 to 6 hours, sometimes longer. So having to go to doctor's appointments all the time is a struggle. But yeah, I saw that gastro. It took a couple months to get in, like any gastro does. And he kind of looked over my stuff and he pointed out, they have down on your colonoscopy that you have severe inflammation. He's like, that's not just anything. He's like, that's Crohn's disease. So
it's in the name of inflammatory bowel disease.
Yeah. So he was like, we'll just do a small bowel series to be sure. And sure enough, by that point, it still showed inflammation. So a year later. And then it also had showed narrowing in my intestines. So voila, I finally got that Crohn's disease diagnosis after it was a little over a year of getting a runaround from a bunch of different doctors.
Wow, how frustrating. And had your symptoms been getting worse the entire time?
So it was kind of like a teeter-totter. Like one day I would be feeling fine, next day I would be feeling really bad. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how I managed it looking back now. Like I have no clue how I went to school full time, worked 35 hours a week and somehow managed to get a 4.0 through college. Like I just have no clue.
Just pure grit.
I guess.
So did you start to get some relief once you finally got to the gastroenterologist and started to see him and they identified, yes, it's Crohn? Did things start going better from there?
Yes. So I had a pretty good GI at that point. He started me on Pentasa, and that seemed to help pretty quickly. I mean, within a couple months, I was feeling good. I had turned 21 at this point and, I wanted to have a drink every now and then. So I was finally able to kind of manage that a little bit. But, Crohn's is pretty unpredictable. So that I wish I could just say I was on Pentasa forever, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, I like to say every time I think I'm getting control of Crohn's, it likes to remind me that, oh, it's still here.
Absolutely.
So tell me where you're at now with your Crohn's, because you've been battling, it's been about 7 years now, and kind of good and bad, but you recently posted on your Instagram that your inflammation levels are actually 500% higher this year than last year, but yet you put on a big smile and you push through the day. So tell me, how does Crohn's affect your day-to-day life and how are you working to manage it right now?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing with day to day is you kind of just wake up and you have no idea how the day is going to go. So there's a level of uncertainty on how everything's going to pan out. And like you said, I'm pretty good at smiling through a ton of pain. So I did have a resection surgery in 2017, just because the stricture around my ileum had gotten to be about the size of a straw. So everything was having to basically jam through a straw to move through my system. So I kept having recurring obstruction. So I was kind of always on a liquid or a soft diet just to avoid ending up in the hospital. So that surgery for me was life-changing. I mean, I remember being able to eat something afterwards for the first time that my stomach didn't hurt afterwards. And I sobbed on my couch and then, which in turn made my incision hurt, but that was a pain. That was a pain that I was totally fine with dealing with. And I've been on Stelara for about 2 years now. I started it before my surgery, actually. And I was diagnosed in remission actually in March of 2018. But at this point, with my inflammation levels, like you said, they're 500% higher than last year at this time. We're kind of not sure if it's really working. So last March, when I was told I was in remission, I did ask to be taken off of azathioprine, so Imuran for people that don't know it by that name. Just because my husband and I really want to, grow our family, and that's one of the, maybe it's a no baby drug. They're still not like positive, but we wanted to be more safe than sorry type of thing. And then as far as other like daily things, I've struggled with anxiety basically since, I would say, when I started getting sick in 2011, 2012. So I do use a lot of like essential oils. I take turmeric every day. I take a supplement. I drink tea. I take a bunch of probiotics, multivitamins. My husband does call me. Go ahead.
I was going to say, have you noticed different improvements? Like when you take the turmeric, do you have to take certain amounts and then you notice improvements, or some of the tea? What kind of things does it help with?
Yeah, so for me, one of my more recent symptoms, I would say, that started probably a few months before surgery. So when my symptoms were pretty heavy and pretty bad daily, I started taking the turmeric, and I noticed it was helping with my joint pain, because that was a new symptom for me that I wasn't used to. And I used to just chalk it up to, getting older. I thought that was a normal thing, but my GI was like, no, that's actually a Crohn's symptom. So the turmeric's helped with that. So when I'm having more joint pain, I'll usually double or triple it just to and I've definitely noticed a difference.
That's good.
The essential oils also, there's so many things out there that those are used for. I mean, they've basically curbed my anxiety. I was able to go off of anxiety medication about a year ago. My husband calls me a witch.
Oh,
I'm his little witch.
Little cauldron mixing up your oils. And
yes, definitely.
Which ones do you find help with anxiety?
So I like the more woodsy scents. So like the cedarwood, northern lights like black spruce. There's a bunch of other ones that I can't think of at the moment, but lavender is great. And there's also a blend that Young Living makes. It's called Stress Away, and that is like my lifeline.
I'm writing it down. I'll put it in the show notes. Stress Away.
Yes. Definitely. And then, Reese, I know I wanted to pick your brain. Maybe we can talk offline about this.
Yeah.
But I've been looking into CBD oil recently. I haven't taken the plunge because I haven't had much time to do a lot of research. So sometime I would like to pick your brain on that.
Well, I'll kind of comment a little bit on it now, because I'm sure people who are listening are probably curious. It's something, years ago I had heard about CBD oil, but I'm sure like a lot of fellow Crohn's and colitis warriors out there, everyone has a cure for us. And so every well-intentioned friend and family member, wants to tell me, take this or take that, just do this and you'll be fine. And they don't understand. And so years ago, I had someone tell me, take CBD oil. And I just thought it was another snake oil. So I never paid attention. But this past year, a few months ago, really, I decided to finally go ahead and try it. And I did some research, and I learned there's a huge learning curve. And so it depends on the quality, if it's full spectrum versus just pure. So I went with a brand called Indoka because it's a full spectrum and it's a raw hemp oil. So everything I had learned online that I could Google and search was saying that for Crohn's and IBD, the full spectrum was better because it has this synergistic effect where everything just works in combination the way it's supposed to. So I started taking a small dose and I didn't really notice the difference. And then I ended up having to take a fairly large dose, which is about 50 milligrams in the morning and 50 milligrams at night. And that, I think, is the level of the CBD and CBDA that's in there. And that actually has helped with my symptoms are typically like bloody mucus and kind of looser stools. And I was starting to have some of that come back, and CBD oil actually helped. So
That's
I'm a
awesome.
I'm a big proponent of the CBD. And unrelated, I had this little spot on my arm. The dermatologist called it a seborrheic keratosis. Not sure what that meant, but it's just a growth. It fell off. So
Oh, wow.
it kind of just, it looked like a baby mole, but it kind of scabbed over and fell off. So it made me believe that it's aligning or doing something in my body that is good. So
That's amazing.
That's
I'm
my
definitely
little...
going to be looking into that more. I mean, my parents, they're amazing, and that's like they keep sending me things like, "Have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this?" So they're the best, though. So I know they have the best intentions.
Yeah, my dad's like that too. He's like, "Have you tried these magnetic bracelets?" And everything under the sun. And I tried it all, so
I've been there.
Who knows if it's gonna work?
Yes.
So how do you find, let's jump back to essential oils for a minute, because with Crohn's, there's obviously a lot of setbacks. We do well, and then there's setbacks. Do you find that essential oils are beneficial when you start having a setback or start having symptoms flare up? Do they help? Because you said they help with anxiety, so I'm thinking maybe they help kind of when, I know I get frustrated or slightly depressed when Crohn's symptoms start to come back. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so for me, when my symptoms start to come back, I immediately start stressing out, and stress is one of my triggers.
Yeah, me too.
So it's definitely, I think, like, even though I might not be treating my Crohn's symptoms as much with the oils, I'm actually helping my Crohn's symptoms because I'm treating the potential stress that I would be having by reducing my anxiety. So
that makes sense to me.
It's kind of like a cyclical, like it just kind of goes. It's like goes in this pattern. So it's like I start to have symptoms, I get very stressed out, I get anxious, and then I make things worse. But now it's kind of like I feel myself getting stressed out. I know I have a few tools in my back pocket that help me manage the stress or make me feel a little more in control of it and control my anxiety. So I'm not stressing as much over my symptoms returning, if that makes sense.
It definitely does. And I think to a lot of people just like us with Crohn's and colitis, I think it'll make sense to them too, because we've all been there. What type of things do you find help your stress? Are there certain activities? Bubble bath? How do you relax?
So stress being a huge trigger for me. I do find it sometimes it is hard because it's an inevitable thing. So I'm always going to have some sort of stress in my life. And one of the things that I've learned to just finally be okay with is that there are days that I just need to have a good cry and let everything go. And so for me, trying to manage it, it's more like I like having a plan for every day. Like I could tell you what I have planned going on every night after work, what my plans are every weekend for the next 2 months. And I even like plan myself time for like nothingness, as I like to call it. So I just get to do nothing. And a little thing that I've been trying, mostly is newer to me this year, is I've been trying to set aside just a little bit of time, half hour or so every day for just myself, for some self-care. So like you said, a bubble bath. I love reading. So reading a chapter in a book. I might watch an episode of The Bachelor, something that's just for myself. And then I've also found that when I do get a good exercise routine going, it does also help alleviate some of that stress because I can kind of put all my stress into my workout, get it all out, and then I'm more relaxed afterwards. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want my exercise routine to kind of be because I love running, but it's really hard on my joints. And
yes,
I love yoga, but I'm pretty uncoordinated. So I'm trying to figure out a good, mix and match. And that's kind of what I've been doing is it's like I might do yoga one day. I might go to the gym and lift. I might go for a run if it's nice out. So it's kind of been figuring out, something that's going to work. And then I can also kind of tailor that to how stressed out I am. If I'm really stressed, I might go run for 2 miles because I just want to hit the pavement hard and keep going.
Yeah. I've noticed exercise really helps me too. And I don't know if there's some sort of physiological reason for it, but I feel stronger, definitely helps my stress, which we all know exercise is good for that. So I think it's definitely underrated in Crohn's management.
Yeah, and I will say the GI that I have now is absolutely amazing. And that's one question she asks me every time is, what am I doing for exercise? What am I doing to get myself moving every day? And she's definitely given me a different outlook on it because I'm like, what do you mean? I'm in pain. I don't want to do anything. She's like, we got to do something. You only got one body.
Got to use it.
Yeah.
So do you feel like throughout all of this, you've definitely had a fair amount of challenges. Do you feel like you've gained any control over your Crohn's?
So this is a great question. I definitely feel like there's times when I've been been the one in control of my disease. I would say definitely after my surgery. I think I'd be lying if I said that I always feel like I'm in control of it. Because there's definitely times when it gets extremely discouraging, how I'm feeling doesn't match up with the lab work or the tests, or when I'm taking really good care of myself and I'm listening to my body, and so I plan something that's exciting and fun with friends and family, and then Crohn's, like you said, decides to join the party.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely still learning how to feel more in control. But I think as I've, gotten older and, I'm reaching out and connecting with other people and seeing what works for them, it's helping me get more of a broader picture on, well, if this doesn't work, I can try this. And it's always nice to have that next thing, because when I started to fail Remicade, it was almost like, girl, there's nothing left for you. I mean,
yeah,
it was, and then, Stelara had come on the market and that was my next thing. And, then it was like, well, if this doesn't work, we're running out of options. And now there's Entyvio and Cimzia, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff now. And so I think just having that, knowing that in the back of my head, knowing that if something doesn't work, there's more things coming, it's kind of helped me get, a better feel for, okay, I might be feeling bad now, but there's something coming and I'll figure it out.
Right. Well, speaking of what works, tell me, what are some of the things that you have found works for you when you start going into a flare or when symptoms start to come up?
Okay. So one of the biggest things that I've learned is listening to my body. So I've totally been that person that's feeling like absolute garbage, should probably be in a hospital. And I just push myself and I push myself until I wind up in a hospital or passed out.
Yeah.
But now with experience under my belt, I know that if I do that, I'm generally setting myself back further and making my flare longer. So taking a rest when my body needs it is definitely something that I've like learned to do. So now, like, if I'm flaring, you might find me curled up on the couch with my heating pad and some hot tea and a good book or Netflix. And then the other thing is just like when I feel like I can't handle it myself at home, I stop trying. Like that's when I know I need to go get checked out because at this point, I'd rather know what's going on than just assuming that it's something normal for me or for my Crohn's. So that's kind of my thing is like listening to my body, getting help when I need it, and just like learning to, kind of relax.
Yeah. And, I think that's important. And I don't think we can reiterate that enough, how important it is, because it seems the more and more people I talk to that it's really common for those of us with Crohn's and colitis to push ourselves and just keep pushing ourselves. And we seem to have a problem resting and listening to our bodies. And so it's really important to learn how to do that. I know it took me a long time to finally learn how to say, all right, let's rest.
Yes.
And I don't know what it is with us.
Yeah. And I feel like communicating too, like, my husband is amazing and I don't think I could ever do life without him. And, one of the like, I think pivotal moments in our marriage was during my surgery consultation appointment. I wanted him there because I was nervous. And he usually didn't go to a whole lot of GI appointments with me just because I was like, we both don't need to miss work. It's fine. We need the money. We have a kid.
Yeah.
So, and the surgeon was asking me all these questions and I was very honest. I mean, the questions of how many days a week are you at a 7 or above on the pain scale? How many days a week are you this? How often are you going to the bathroom? And I was just answering everything honestly. And I look over at my husband and he just had this look on his face like I had been lying to him for years. And I think that was a pivotal moment for us with me realizing, okay, I guess I'm not the best communicator when I'm not feeling good. So that's definitely something I've kind of learned to do is just communicate with him better. I mean, after that, he definitely treated me like a broken piece of china for a while, but we've gotten through that now.
Good. Well, what's the biggest challenge you've faced since you've had Crohn's?
All right. So for me, this is something that I don't normally talk about. And there's a couple things that kind of go through my head when I think of like the biggest challenge. But definitely I think the biggest overall is that with my IBD, it's been that I haven't been allowed to grow my family. So my daughter wasn't a planned pregnancy. It just kind of happened. My husband and I were still in college. I walked my college graduation 9 months pregnant.
Wow.
But my husband and I always wanted a big family. We were planning on having at least 3 kids, if not more. So after I had her and my health kind of just kept going downhill and my symptoms kept getting worse, I was told that it wasn't a good idea to have another baby anytime soon. So I waited and I waited. And in that time frame, I went through a lot with my Crohn's disease, and every doctor I know, like every doctor I see knows that like we're dying to have another baby. And it does seem like every time we get that, like the green light, like we'll try it, we'll track, and then, we'll get discouraged and then something happens and we're right back to having the red light from my doctors. But one of the hardest things is like everybody asks, every family event, every play date, anything that involves kids, we get asked when the next one's coming. And it hurts me, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't. Sometimes I can laugh it off and cry later. And sometimes I'll actually admit that it's because of me that we, haven't been able to have one. And I would say that that's still a challenge that I'm learning to cope with.
Yeah.
But I do keep reminding myself, like, everything happens for a reason. Like, when we got pregnant with my daughter, I did not understand why it was happening
Yeah.
then. Like, we weren't married yet. We were both still in school. It was a crazy time. But looking back, like, I know she happened at that exact moment she was supposed to. So I
Yeah.
know that I'm extremely blessed to have her. And I really do hope that one day I'll finally get that go ahead and that we can promote her to a big sister.
Yeah, because she's about to go into kindergarten, correct?
Yes, it's crazy to think she starts kindergarten next year.
That's awesome. She's cute. I've seen the pictures that you post of her. She's
Thank
adorable.
you. She's my little mini me.
How do you, is it difficult when you're trying to care for yourself, but also care for your daughter? How are you able to juggle life with IBD and life with being a mom? What kind of strategies do you have for the other moms out there?
Oh boy, I don't know if you would call them strategies per se.
Winging it?
Yeah, I would say I mostly wing it. So like I would say one of the one of the things I know I've mentioned like the mental health aspect, but like I would say when it comes to being a mom, that's also something that like messes with my head because like when I feel like I'm not feeling well and I have to take the time to myself, I sometimes get in that, I'm not a good mom. I can't be doing this with her. And, and sometimes our family's focus gets to be on me instead of her. And then there are the times where I literally just kind of give it my all and put a smile on my face until she's snuggled up in bed and then, cry to my husband later.
Yeah.
But I would say a tip for that is just communicating with your kid. So it amazes me how much a kid can understand at such a young age. When I was prepping for surgery, I was so nervous about it. I was so nervous how she would be. I sat down with her. I made her like a mommy's little helper care package. So it had a couple books about like when mommy's sick and needs to stay in bed and stuff about the hospital.
Yeah.
I also made her a teddy bear that I hand stitches on its belly, and I put an NG tube in it. I just wanted her to be like active in my recovery and kind of understand as well as she could what was happening. So
yeah, because she had to have been 3,
she was
maybe
about,
at the time.
yeah, she was 3. So mommy, because she had been with me when I was in the hospital for 9 days with a bowel obstruction at one point, and I think the NG tube, that was the whole reason for the teddy bear with the tube, because she saw me that day and like cried. She didn't understand why I had things coming out of me. She'd never seen me in that sort of environment. So I wanted her to, understand it as well as she could and know that like I was going to be okay. So I would just say, tips would be making sure you make time for yourself. Don't get in your own head. We're all out here winging it and we're doing the best we can. But yeah, I would say don't be afraid to share with your kids as young as you want. Cause I mean, literally, I didn't think I would ever talk about poop so much with a 4-year-old. But when you have Crohn's disease, I mean, I'm very open about it. I mean, I'm like, might as well break the stigma with her. If boys don't like it when she's 13 and talking about poop, then they can just walk on because they're not meant to be in our life.
Exactly. This is a family that talks about poop.
Yes, like, please get over it.
Well, that's good tips. Do you talk with her now? Do you tell her about Crohn's and what it is? Do you go into more details now that she's getting a little bit older and understanding more?
Yeah, so I think I haven't necessarily went into, Crohn's, like the specifics. I think that's still a little,
above
until
her
she has
age.
some, like, explaining what's going on in your intestines and stuff, I think is a little above
Yeah.
her. But she does understand, sometimes when I eat, I have stomach pain afterwards, or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sometimes mommy can't get off the couch for the day and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing I've kind of focused on is, making those comments about, invisible illnesses and chronic illnesses, and explaining things like that more in general. If you never know what somebody's going through. So, she might, see somebody in a grocery store in a wheelchair and ask me about it. And we'll go through and we'll look up, famous people in wheelchairs and talk about, how normal it is and how you never know what somebody's going through. So I
Yeah.
think that's definitely, I'm hoping to shape her into a super just amazing human that
Yeah.
understands that, everybody's different. Everybody has things that they're going through, and sometimes you can't always see it. So I think, as a parent with a chronic illness, that's kind of that should be part of our job, is to raise them with
Yeah.
a more open heart and an open mind to things like that.
That's fantastic. She'll have that compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about your passion for baking. So first, tell me, how did you get this passion for baking, and what did it stem from? Because it'll lead into my next
Okay.
questions.
Yeah. So baking. So a little bit of background. Growing up, I think I was whipping up batches of cookies at like age 7. My dad taught me so much about cooking and ingredients, and I would help him with dinner, and he would teach me how to make a delicious meal out of, like, when I was always like, there's nothing to eat. So
Uh-huh.
in high school, I had joined a culinary arts curriculum. So I was literally in a kitchen for at least 2 hours a day. Usually I would skip some more classes to be there more. But I always thought that I was going to end up being a chef at a fancy restaurant. So when I graduated high school, I was one of 25 students that was selected for the it's called the Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange. In German, it's called the Parlamentarisches Patenschaftsprogramm. So
Wow.
it's a scholarship exchange program for students that are mostly interested in technical fields to live in Germany for an entire year, go to school, immerse themselves in the German culture, and kind of do internships. So that year not only gave me like clarity that I was in the right field, but it also helped me narrow down that my passion was more than just like being a chef. It was more specifically like the fine-tuned skills and preciseness that is baking and pastry. So I changed my major from culinary arts to baking and pastry when I returned back home in the US. And I ended up having to take a semester off in between my return home and college because I just didn't have time to get all the funds together for the fall. But it was also during that time when I was changing my major that I found out from my family that my great-grandmother was a pastry chef at a local hotel.
Oh,
so it kind of like solidified in me that I was like doing the right thing, and maybe it was like genetic.
meant to be. It's in your genes.
Yeah. So I started college in that January 2012, which, if you recall, is like when everything went crazy.
Well, and then did you end up finishing the bakery? Is it the culinary degree, or is it different if it's chef versus bakery, or?
Yeah, so it's a baking and pastry major. So I went to Pennsylvania College of Technology in Pennsylvania, obviously, in this little town called Williamsport. And so they have a culinary arts program. They have hospitality management, baking and pastry, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch of other stuff, but it's an amazing school. So yeah, I graduated 9 months pregnant, but all through college, I graduated probably one of the top people in my class. I was student of the month. I was in like all the extracurriculars. And after my maternity leave and I graduated college, I did land a full-time baking job, and I absolutely loved it.
Awesome. So now tell me, because I asked all that because in one of your recent posts, you had mentioned that Crohn's almost robbed you of your dream. And so you were talking about the baking, and I want to ask, what made you realize that Crohn's or not, you needed to pursue this passion?
Yeah. So for people that don't follow me on Instagram, I can give a little like background of that. So like I said, like I had landed that full-time baking job, and like being in a kitchen, I just like my creative juices are flowing. I love everything about it. The science behind how the ingredients work together, and just like how every single baker and pastry chef get to have like their own niche. So it's just a great industry. And I was like so excited to be a part of it. But having a kid kind of like changed my outlook on life a lot. So when I started to fall ill and my symptoms came back with vengeance, in the past I would have just kept, trucking along, pushing it myself till I broke. But I knew that it was time that I made sure I took care of myself, because I had a little baby who kind of relied on me to keep her alive now, and mama had to be well. So I left my full-time baking job and I found an office job, and I was extremely bitter about it. I did great. At my office job. My bosses were amazing, but I was extremely bitter that my IBD affected my ability to do what I wanted with my life. So I stopped baking for quite a long time. So my husband can vouch that when I was asked to do a cake kind of in this time frame, I would do it, but I was dropping F-bombs and crying in the kitchen when something went wrong. And like, I felt like I didn't have enough time to make everything perfect. But then it was about a year ago now, there was kind of like two events that really got me back into it. And the first was a phone call that I got on a Thursday from some random stranger who said she got my number from a friend and she needed a cake for Saturday for her son, who she forgot to order a birthday cake. So anybody who's worked in a bakery or in a grocery store bakery, people come in Friday night at 5 and want a cake Friday night at 6. Like, but like you usually get turned down. So this wasn't just like a plain cake. Like, it wasn't something she could go pick out of like the Wegmans case. So she wanted a cake with fondant decorations and everything. And I almost said no. But then I was like, dang, my friend thinks I can pull off a miracle. So I was like, I don't know why, but I was like, I might as well try. So I did. And it was literally one of the best fondant cakes I've ever done. And every day I kept showing the pictures too, was very impressed. So that like kind of lit a fuel for me. And then Netflix actually released their newest season at that point of Chef's Table. And it was an entire season about pastry chefs. And first up was Christina Tosi. She's the founder of Milk Bar in New York City. And she's basically like the pioneer of the naked cake. And she's just like a straight up badass. Hopefully I can say that.
You can say it.
But one of her messages in that documentary is about how it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there, but you just have to keep trying and keep going. So for me, that message kind of clicked. So, my Crohn's might have taken away that job and that moment and that time frame of me baking, but it was now my turn to take it back. So I've come back from that period of time with so much more passion for baking. And I just have this like, I'm itching to keep learning. And my ultimate goal is that I am going to have my own cake studio one day. So I'm been working towards that, building clientele, trying to figure out everything I will need to get done to be that and do that full time. So that's my passion behind everything.
That is awesome. And honestly, I think it's so important to have a passion like that, because it kind of negates all the stress we have in our day when there's something that you can look so forward to that really ignites that fire and gets you revved up. I think it's important to find those things and go after them. So I'm excited to hear that you were baking and you are back to doing that. And we'll just throw it in here for anyone you're in the Pittsburgh area, is that correct? Or?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, so if anyone is in the Pittsburgh area and needs a cake, they can go to cakedbyryno.com, correct?
That's correct. And Ryno is R-Y, it's R-Y-N-O. It's a spin-off of our last name of Rynearson.
I'll put it in the show notes so they can just click right on it.
Perfect. Now, I have an Instagram page for it too, but it's not as it's not as full as like the website is at the moment.
Well, we'll put them all in the show notes.
Okay.
So I'm curious, this is a perfect segue, because pastry and baking, those are cookies. I love chocolate chip cookies, but sugar is my worst trigger, and chocolate is evil for me, but I love it so much. So how do you deal with food? Are the things you make, are they triggers for you? How do you balance that?
So I've kind of gotten to this point where I'm okay-ish with everything in moderation. So, when I first was in college and going through baking labs and stuff, like instead of trying a little bite of everything, I was eating one of everything. Like I would eat, basically a whole cake or something. So at this point now, I do have to try everything I make, because that would be rude if I didn't, because I'm feeding it to people. But yeah, it's kind of in moderation now. So, I'll try it and I'll have my husband try it. And sometimes I have my daughter try it. And that's kind of like, they're my biggest critics. Like, so that's kind of where I've gotten with that. But yeah, it's funny. Like just from listening to your podcast, I'm just so amazed at how different everybody's trigger foods are. So I know like you can't eat anything sweet or like chocolate chips or anything like that. Whereas for me, they're not so bad. They don't really bother me.
I'm jealous.
And then I know, I'm sorry. I'll have to figure out a carnivore
it's all right
for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, but for me, I guess, so some of my like food triggers are spicy food. So I cannot do anything spicy, which sucks because I love jalapeno poppers.
My husband makes those all the time. He loves them too.
They're so good. Dairy products are kind of a hit or a miss. For a really long time, I just thought I was like lactose intolerant. But when my symptoms are under control, like I can stomach a bowl of ice cream or something. So, one of the biggest things before surgery was any leafy vegetables, which I know is similar to you. So I could not eat salad. Yeah. Like salad was off of the table for a few years. And now that I've had my resection surgery and I have pictures of how small the stricture was, I'm like, how did lettuce ever get through that? Like, I don't understand.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
That's why there was so much pain.
Yeah. But one of my weirdest trigger foods I figured out was raw peaches. Yeah, so like I could eat them cooked if they're in like a cobbler or something. But somebody did suggest to me that it might be the pesticides that get left in the fuzz because you can never really wash them out. So I've been too scared. I've been too scared to try anymore. Yeah, I'm sure I'm forgetting some of them, like some of my trigger foods. But I do notice. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, as far as like how I eat now, I do feel pretty decent if I do like a modified like paleo type diet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's super hard to maintain with a family. So I used to find myself making 2 meals every night. Um, so I'd make the paleo one for me and a normal one for my husband and my daughter because I'm the cook in the family. But it was just
Mm-hmm.
like so time consuming, and it obviously got to be pretty expensive. So that's kind of where my like moderation and everything has kind of gone. So, it kind
Mm-hmm.
of just depends on how I'm feeling. So,
And that way
if
you're
I'm having things,
able to make one meal for the family, but you can just moderate certain things that you're eating. Is that kind of how you do it now then?
yeah. So for meals, it's, if my husband wants a salad, I'll eat the meat and some of the toppings and things like that, but maybe not the whole salad, or I'll eat with way less lettuce or something. So it's kind of like moderating, or like kind of just making little changes to what we're eating instead of making two separate meals.
Yeah. Now, did you ever keep a food? Did you ever keep a food journal or anything to help identify triggers, or was it fairly easy for you to get a handle on what were good foods versus not good foods?
Yeah, I definitely kept a food journal. So if you don't know your trigger foods, I would definitely say that's like the first place to start, because you'll look back at it and you'll definitely see patterns. So for me, that was kind of how I figured out dairy, and the lettuce thing. That was kind of how I figured those two things
Mm-hmm.
out. And that was also how I figured out my safe foods. So my safe foods are basically all the unhealthy carbs. So white bread, rice, toast, mashed potatoes. And then like I can throw in some bananas and like applesauce. So all the mushy
Mm-hmm.
or carbs. So that was kind of how I figured those things out, though, was using a food journal. And there's some pretty decent ones. I know they've come out with since then, like for your phone, which is nice.
Yeah. When I was first diagnosed and dealing with my Crohn's, probably, I guess it's been however many years, 12 plus years. So I just wrote it on
Mm-hmm.
a little steno notepad, just a little notebook, and I had that. And I remember my
Mm-hmm.
very first gastroenterologist that I ever had when I was first starting to go through the diagnosis process. And I came in one day and had this big giant notebook, and he was asking me these questions, and then I started flipping through my notebook and trying to reference, I'm like, well, let me, trying to find the answers to things he was asking. He's like, do you have it all written down there? I was like, yes, I do. He's like, let me see this. He was
That's
very,
awesome.
he was very impressed by my bathroom notes and my food notes, and it was
Mm-hmm.
all in this little journal that I didn't want anyone. It was my worst fear that someone would find this journal that had
Oh,
all my
yeah.
bowel movement descriptions in there, and
Okay,
what is
I
that?
used to have like code words. I used to have like code words for things because I was like, gosh, if somebody ever finds this thing, they're gonna like
Yeah.
admit me.
Who's keeping track of this?
Yeah.
That's funny. So I do want to ask, because we talk about how we're hiding the embarrassing things we're writing about, but we're obviously sharing them now. So what made you,
Yeah.
what, what compelled you to become an IBD advocate and to start sharing your own story?
Yeah, so I heard you ask this question and I was kind of trying to
Hmm.
think back, like if there was like a specific moment or a time in my life that kind of compelled me to do it. And the one thing, and it actually came up on like a Facebook memory a few days ago. And I was
Hmm.
like, that was it. And I was going to an infusion appointment for my Remicade. And I was taking the elevator up to like, I think I was only going to like the third floor. But I was in the elevator. It was just me and some old man. And he looked at me like disgusted. And he goes, young thing like you should be using the stairs. And I
Mm.
was like literally speechless. So I got to my floor,
Wow.
I walked out of the elevator, and I just started bawling. And I called my husband and I just cried. But then once I like stopped crying, I got angry. Like I just kept thinking like, how dare he? Like he has no idea what my life is like, what my story is like. Like I am at a hospital. Like,
Yeah.
and
I have an
I
appointment.
posted, yeah, like I posted this big long post on Facebook as a rant about, you know, invisible illnesses and explaining how, you know, if I had taken the stairs, I would have been out of breath and barely able to walk the rest of the way to my infusion because, you know, at that point I still had anemia pretty bad and it took my energy away from me all the time. So from that post though, you know, I felt like I needed to explain myself, which I didn't, but I had a pretty positive response to that. So I had a bunch of people, you know, reach out to me, some not necessarily, you know, even that knew what was going on with me. You know, and talking to me about like they have this chronic illness or they have this and, you know, that they like related to it. And then as time kind of went on and I started meeting people organically that had IBD, you know, and I started to get involved in the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, you know, I kind of just like, I knew that I needed to like start sharing my story. And my, there was kind of two people that I had met that had IBD, and one was this girl Leslie that I met in Minneapolis, and she was the one who told me to stop Googling everything, which was probably the best advice I'd ever gotten in my life.
Yeah.
But then the other was it's my husband's cousin's now wife, so girlfriend at the time. So we're cousins. That's just what we say. Her name's Taylor. She lives in Cleveland. And she's always been very open about her story, and she's just kind of inspired me to like, you know, stop being so, you know, closed up about it. And how like when she shared her story with me, like it really opened my eyes, and that was kind of when I started to know I wasn't alone. So I just like felt so alone and isolated when I first got my diagnosis. So it was just like a part of me that I didn't want people to see that was like affecting my life, and how, you know, how much I was struggling with it, not just with the Crohn's symptoms, but also like the mental health aspect of it. So, you know, kind of my goal with sharing my story was to, you know, help at least one person not feel so alone when they get that diagnosis, or, you know, and I would say, like, in my experience since sharing it, like, I never imagined the outpouring of love and support from the entire IBD community. Like, sometimes now I feel much more comfortable posting things on my Crohnstagram, as I like to call it, than like my own personal Facebook page. So, like, since kind of opening up, you know, I've gotten a lot more opportunities with like, and my involvement in the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has just kind of skyrocketed in the past few years. So this year, actually, for Pittsburgh, I'm the Take Steps Adult Honored Hero, which is very exciting.
That is.
And last summer, I took a week off of work, and I was a volunteer camp counselor at Camp Oasis.
Oh, how wonderful.
Which is a summer camp that's a week long, and it's just for kids that have IBD. So that was like one of the most heart-wrenching and like heartwarming experiences I've ever had. Like I was diagnosed as an adult, but some of these kids have had it since they were 4 years old. And like, when like I love all the IBD advocates we have like in this community, I am so excited for some of these kids to, you know, come of age and start opening up, because they're like some of the best humans, like not even just like kids, like they're some of the best like humans I've ever met. Like they're just amazing.
They end up with a different outlook and just wise beyond their years and just
Yes, like they've
amazing
been
kids.
through so much, and their positive outlook on life just is it's amazing. They're the best. And if anybody knows any kids with IBD, if you want to message me on Instagram, I will for sure put you in contact with somebody to get them to camp, because it's life-changing, not only for the people that volunteer, but also just for the kids.
Awesome. That is awesome. So if there was one thing you wish people knew about the disease that didn't, what would that be?
So I think the biggest thing is just how different everybody's journey is and how their journey is going to go. So, some people with IBD are, famous Major League Baseball players or magicians or gymnasts. And others of us are on disability and cannot work or can only work part-time, or, are in the hospital for weeks at a time. So that's the one thing, is I feel like there's a lot of people that see, the famous people that have IBD, and they're like, well, they're living their life,
Yeah.
they're fine. And it's just, everybody's case is so different. And that's why there's so many medications out there. And that's why it takes us so long to figure out what works for everybody. It's just that every single person is different. They have to be treated differently. Their symptoms, everything is insane. I mean, even just talking about our trigger foods,
Right.
It's all over the place. But that's probably the one thing, is just everybody's different.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that's probably why I would imagine doctors feel so frustrated too, because they can't really give advice because nothing works the same for everybody. So it kind of puts them in a tough spot too. Because we are very different. So
yeah. And I would be frustrated if I was a GI and I didn't know how to help people. But sometimes that's just the reality of it, is it's a tough case. And, that's why clinical trials are also important. I never thought I would ever even consider, being a quote unquote guinea pig. But, as I've failed 2 biologics for sure, possibly a third, that's definitely in my radar of, I could do something, it could work for me. And then it could possibly help somebody else down the road.
Yes. So now you're willing.
Yes, I
am. Well, if people want to keep up with your IBD journey and learn more about your cake baking, where can they find you online?
So for my Crohn's journey, I mostly utilize my Instagram. So it's at Chronically Fabulous. So
that's
it's a little
the
play off of
CROHN.
Chronically Fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little play off of Chronically Fabulous. And then for my cakes, I have an Instagram at Caked by Rhino. I have a website and a Facebook for that. But yeah, as far as Crohn's, I am active on Twitter, which is at Sammy Brad. And that I mostly post about, baking, Crohn's stuff, and the occasional, mom moment or something like that.
Gotta have a few of those.
Yes, for sure.
I'll put all those links in the show notes so that people can click and find you and follow with what you're up to.
Awesome.
Now, is there anything that we covered a lot? Is there anything I didn't ask that you wanted to share today?
So really the only other thing I think I could add would be, it kind of goes along with like everybody's different, but for those, like, stop telling everybody that it could be worse. So For those of us that have Crohn's, we know that, and we understand that our situation could be worse, but every single IBD patient deserves to live a full life, and one where they can pursue their passions, one where they can be understood, and one where they can be heard. So, most of us advocates aren't raising awareness, to get attention. It's because we want the awareness so that one day, these 6, 7, 8-year-old kids aren't giving a lifelong diagnosis anymore.
Yes.
And another note is just stick up for yourself. If you don't think you're getting answers, or you don't think a doctor's listening to you, you need to stick up for yourself. Doctors love when you play a big part in your journey. I think since I've stuck up for myself and things like that, I've gotten better quicker because I'm more involved. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to try things, but I'm also pushing back on them. So please stop telling us it could be worse. We know that, but we still deserve to live a life that we love. So that's really it.
Very well said. I like that. Well, thank you so much. I think it's so valuable. I know I gain a lot every time I talk with someone and learn a little bit about another person's journey. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me and share your story today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have an IBD story, either as a patient or a family member that you'd like to share as a guest on this podcast, or if you have a topic you'd like to hear about, send me an email at crohnsfitnessfood@gmail.com. If you'd like to learn more about me and my Crohn's journey, follow me on Instagram using @crohnsfitnessfood, or visit my blog for in-depth articles about my struggles and victories with Crohn's through diet, fitness, and lifestyle at www.crohnsfitnessfood.com. And finally, remember, be strong, be grateful, and be the warrior that you are.